Nobody out. 3-2 on Charlotte.
Jokic gets it across the timeline. Gets a high pick and pop with Murray. Lindsey breaking through.
Taken away by Nathan McKinnon. 2-on-2 with Landeskog.
He has done it again. Von Miller, ladies and gentlemen. Dark two hands, Nikola Jokic.
Save me by Grubauer with the left pad. Oh, goodness gracious me.
Take a good look. You won't see it for long. Two-run home run. Trevor Story.
Lock. End zone. Touchdown. Number 2 for Sutton. Got it. Oh, man. That's from way downtown. And the blue arrow is flying at Pepsi Center.
Score! It's too good to be true. But believe it. Oh, hail, hail.
We finally got music, guys. I finally decided to add this intro in here.
I love it.
Love it.
It gets you hyped.
I missed that song.
Oh, hail, Kale is like, ooh, okay.
When an announcer's voice cracks in the middle of his call for a goal, you know it's a good one.
Exactly. Well, welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast. WGT Golf is the game to play on your phone or your computer. It's the most popular golf game in the world and in the DNVR community. So many of you have joined us that we had to open a third DNVR clubhouse, and that one's almost full, which means almost 750 people are playing WGT Golf with us, which is amazing. Stop feeling left out if you haven't downloaded it, and go download it today and join the DNVR clubhouse by going to DNVRgolf.com. We have tournaments within the DNVR community every weekend. One starts tonight, of course. It's called Fantasy Open or something like that because we started a fantasy podcast. So go check that one out as well. But don't forget to go to DNVRgolf.com to download that today. How's everyone doing?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Doing great.
I need a beer.
It's been a wild couple of days.
I know, but I'm drinking my Strava craft coffee. This podcast is, of course, presented by the one and only Breckenridge Brewery, the official DNVR beer. And the Avalanche Ale is probably one of my favorite beers, but we've got some new beers to try. We've got the Broncos Country Hoppy Pale Ale. The can, I showed you guys that last week. Looks amazing. Then I didn't know there was a Palisade Peach Wheat beer. We have that at the office.
Wow.
I'm excited to try that one out.
Palisade peaches are objectively the greatest things on the planet Earth, by the way, for everyone. And if you've not been out there before, I will happily drive the 4 hours across the mountains and take anybody who wants on a tour of Palisade Peach Country.
Oh, I'm down. I've never been. Let's go.
I think that's just a fact, Drew.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm your host, Allie Monroy, and with me today, I've got AJ Hafley, Zach Stevens, Drew Kreisman, and Harrison Wind. I can never get the pointing right. I don't think I could never be a weather person. I can't do the whole green screen thing, but Avs and Nuggets are coming off much-needed wins in their respective series. The Rockies ended their losing streak with consecutive wins against the Diamondbacks, and the Broncos are halfway through their training camp. We'll be talking about all of that in today's episode. But with, like Harrison said, it's been a crazy few days, and with what's going on in the world, we can't not mention the fact that sports haven't been played because of the social injustice issues that are happening in our country. Players from each league have come out and stood up and shared their voices and their concern and their hope for change. And each of our beats, Harrison, or DNVR Nuggets, or DNVR Rockies, DNVR Avs, and DNVR Broncos, have all had really great conversations and use these days to speak with their community and make sure that we feel like here at DNVR, everyone in our community is being heard and feels like we are a family, because that's our goal. So if you want to participate in those type of conversations, definitely check out their podcasts. They really all have done a fantastic job talking about that. And for those people saying keep politics out of sports, for us here at DNVR, this isn't political at all. This is just basic human rights, and that's what we will always stand for. And thankfully, we are surrounded by people who agree with that and who want to participate in having their voice heard. So with that, is there anything else you guys want to add?
I think you nailed it. Other than sports aren't sticking to sports right now, so I think it's important.
Yeah, my job is literally to report what Trevor Story says, and Trevor Story said some very interesting things that I think everyone should listen to, and Justin Simmons has said some very interesting things that I think everyone should have a listen to, and Champ Bailey and
Champ Bailey was huge.
Jamal Murray, and so that's all we're doing is we're listening and reporting what people are saying.
All right. Well, like I said, you can definitely check out all those guys' podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. The past few days have been taking the opportunity to have this conversation. So definitely head over there. But let's start off with the Avs, who, since that's the most recent win we watched on Thursday, AJ, much needed win, showed some energy finally. Things were going their way after 2 games where certain bounces and things just had not been.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at it, game 1, they were 3-3. And then they find a way to lose. Game 2, they were up 2-0. They find a way to lose. Game 3, they're up 3-1. They give up 3 straight third period goals in a matter of like 5 minutes. And they go from, hey, we're just trying to lock down a pretty standard NHL win to now our season is on the line in like 15 real-time minutes. It all just flipped. And it's really hard for a team to respond to that kind of gut punch, and they finally did. They finally met the moment when they absolutely had to, and it was just a nice change. It was a tough day. It was a long night, and they at least made it all worth it with a pretty thrilling victory that day.
Oh, yeah. 6-4 win. They were up 3-1 heading into that third period. But, of course, in hockey and with every sport, the game isn't over till the game is over. Dallas was able to score 2 goals to tie it up. Finally, though, this game, we saw some secondary shooting. Everything wasn't reliant on that 3-headed monster.
Yeah, they did a good job creating some opportunities. Like Zadorov just bombing home a slap shot that it's not screened or anything. It just finds its way in. That was exactly the kind of good thing that they needed to have happen to them, for them to sort of make it easier for them to believe that they could actually win a game against those guys. And Burakovsky gets a little bit of open space and he just does what he does. And then also the 3-headed monster was excellent again.
Yes. Great goal by Mikko Rantanen too.
Finally.
I know. Since this podcast last Friday, we haven't talked about Grube being out, Eric Johnson, and how that affects this team.
Losing Grubauer hurts. Anytime you have to go to your backup, Francouz has been really good through most of the year, so them going to their backup would seem easier than some other teams. He hasn't shown why that's the case. He hasn't been any good in the series so far. So there's that it's still 2-1 with their backup goalie against. It's really backup goalie against backup goalie in the series. So if Frankie ever actually shows up and plays to the caliber to the level that we know he can, Colorado should be getting even better as the series wears on. That Colorado has gotten bad goaltending for 3 games and is still been competitive in the series should be a big problem for Dallas.
Definitely. I mean, Frankie made his NHL postseason debut during the round robin, and you can tell just he gets nervous. Cale Makar went up to him in the last game after they Dallas Stars tied things up and kind of like told him it's okay, shake it off, like you're gonna be okay. And thankfully that helped him, but you really do see him be shaky, and you can see his lack of experience in the playoffs with that.
Yeah, he just hasn't been good enough for whatever reason. Like that Blake Como goal in Game 3, it just can't happen. So he's got to pick it up because there's nothing behind him. There's no other wave. There's no next man up after him. They technically have somebody, but he's not an NHL goalie. So Frankie's got to figure this out. And if he figures it out and he really starts to lock it down, Dallas is in serious trouble.
Drew, I don't know if you were watching last game, but we almost had a Nathan McKinnon goal.
That's right.
And it would have been amazing.
Yeah, no, I caught some of the highlights, so I happened to miss that one because, again, there's just been a lot going on. But now I got to try to catch some of these coming up more and more. The scheduling isn't doing us any favors, by the way. Them announcing these games like a day ahead of time and at really weird times, and they keep putting the Avs and the Nuggets on at the same time, and usually not too far off from the Rockies. If it's, usually I'm doing post game, right? Those are or I'm getting ready for, and it's just like, man, can we have a little? We were all excited that all of our 3 sports were going to be going at the same time, and it was going to be this unique thing. I was like, maybe not the exact same time.
Oh, yeah.
Focus out a little bit there.
Especially with having a bar. We're like, really? You're going to put the Nuggets and the Avs at the exact same time?
Allie, I think the NBA and NHL have to clear it with the DNVR bar before they put out
Exactly.
They should clear it with us first.
Well, didn't they for Sunday? Aren't we back-to-back playoff games Sunday?
Yep.
Man,
back to back.
At least they helped us out there.
Yeah, we've got Rockies at 1, Avs at 4, and then Nuggets at 6:30.
30. Jam-packed Sunday. But, AJ, we'll finish off with Avs talk after. The series is at 2-1. Do you still believe the Avs will win this series?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dallas has gotten away with a whole bunch of nonsense. And you have to think that the second that goes away, like maybe it doesn't in this series, but if it does, the second that it goes away, Colorado should be able to take care of them. They're the better team.
And then we have a few comments about our denim daddy, Matt Calvert. Do we have any update on him? Do we know anything besides day-to-day still?
Bednar said it best the other day. Those guys are out until they're back. We're not gonna find out anything.
Hockey, man, that would be unacceptable. That would be an unacceptable answer at a baseball scrum.
Or football, or really basketball too. Sure. It's just, you have to say, literally, Matt Calvert was in warm-ups one day, then didn't play during the game. Then after that was day-to-day out. No clue as to what happened. It's really crazy.
Wild.
We talked about it multiple times on this podcast before, but it's just every time it happens, we're like, what? How can we not have any information on this guy? Well, Drew, you weren't able to watch the Avs game the other night because the Rockies were playing at the exact same time. We're watching the Avs up 3-1 here at the DNVR bar. Then they tie it. They tie it up. Dallas gets into the game, and we're like, oh, God, having heart palpitations, like freaking out about the Avs. And then we look over, and the Rockies almost gave up the game. We look over.
Just almost blowing a 7-run lead, just casually.
8-7, bottom of the 9th, and everyone was like, wait, well, now we have to panic about 2 games here?
And the bases were loaded, don't forget. And the Rockies had to bring in to close the game a guy who's been, until this year, nothing but a failure as a starter, and had coming into the year an ERA of, I think, 14. I don't know exactly what it was. It was not, Jeff Hoffman's been great this year, but an 8-1 lead after Charlie Blackmon hit a grand slam, and they were a ball in the dirt away from losing that game.
It was crazy. Finally, Jeff Hoffman gets that out. We're good to go. Rockies win. DNVR bar goes crazy. So excited for it, and then turns full attention back to the Avs and panicking about that game. But
not the best way to grab headlines, Rockies. That is not how you get attention.
But at least the Rockies were able to break their losing streak. They had only won 2 of 14 games before this series with the Diamondbacks. Started crazy, 2 of 14. But the Diamondbacks were also on a 5-game losing streak. So really, this series was up in the air, and the Rockies were able to take it.
Yeah, it was there was a lot of stuff. We talked about this last week. I think there was a lot of stuff that went on during that losing stretch. Some of it was bad baseball. A lot of it was bad luck. They were going to come out of it. Trying to come out of it against the Astros and the Dodgers is not the best way to try to find your best footing. Those are 2 of the best teams in baseball. And so, coming back and going to their house and playing a Diamondbacks team who was scuffling a little bit, and I guess effectively now sweeping them in 3 games since the 4th one has been postponed, I think sent a message. And the biggest thing for me, because you asked me, Allie, last week, what do we kind of hope for in the Dodger series and all of that? And I was talking about playing good baseball. In the first 2 games, they played good baseball. In the 3rd one, they did not. They didn't win any of them, but that to me was a big sign that moving forward they were going to be okay. And then in the Diamondback series, they got right back to their formula. They're winning because their pitching has been good, and it remains good. It was mostly good in that Dodger series. It was good against the Astros. The reason they lost games because they couldn't get a key hit, and an occasional bullpen implosion, which is going to happen to just about anybody. You got to keep those limited, and that's the biggest concern moving forward. 100%. That bullpen is not going to stop grabbing your attention when it shouldn't, when you should be paying attention to the Avs and Nuggets. That bullpen is going to cause everyone nightmares. But as long as the Rockies' starting pitching continues to do this, and they will, they're going to have a good season. They're going to be a good team, especially because Nolan Arenado is going to come around. The offense isn't going to stay this cold all season. And that's what they got there in Arizona. Pitch well, get a couple of key hits. Nolan got doubles and drove in runs, which he hadn't been doing. And then they won.
A Charlie home run.
Yeah. It was a pretty simple formula that they got back to, and I think they can keep going moving forward.
It's sad, but I did say this while we were watching the Avs and Rockies, and then we look over, and of course the Rockies bullpen imploded, and I was like, well, would it be the Rockies without a game or 2 where we're like, what happened to the bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough. Like it's a ragtag group. They lost their most important reliever the day before the season started in Scott Oberg. They had some hopes that Wade Davis was a mechanical issue away from being fixed, since he has 9 great years on his resume and 1 awful one. It was such an outlier. There was some hope there. That obviously didn't happen, and he got hurt right away. So they're 2 guys they were expecting to be kind of the rock-solid foundation of that bullpen are gone. And then Jairo Diaz, who was probably next in line for that, a younger guy with less of a resume, he's been a total mess this season. The guys who've been reliable have been people like Daniel Bard and Yency Almonte and Carlos Estevez. Now, Estevez, the one guy I think people were expecting to be reliable, and he's been what is advertised. Everyone else in the bullpen has either been much better or much worse than advertised. And that's just going to, we're just going to have to find out. Is Bard for real? Is Yency Almonte a young kid coming up? Can Carlos Estevez keep doing it? If so, you're fine. If the shine wears off of Daniel Bard, if you have to start counting on Tyler Kinley and Jairo Diaz for those most important innings, then you're in a tough spot. Yeah. But the thing here is this. Win a couple of games, Rockies, and I promise you this. Love them, hate them, Rockies fans, media people, whatever, Jeff Bridich will go get a reliever. That's the one thing he's been successful at in his career. He's talked about it, doing it this season. He talked to Thomas Harding about, I hope we're in the right spot, that I can add a reliever. That's what they need. That's what he's been good at acquiring. They got to keep themselves in the hunt, and they can help solve that problem. But the offense and the starting pitching need to keep doing their thing.
Drew, we have someone in the comments asking, do we have a David Dahl update?
No, that's the one thing this year with a bit more separation in these, shorter Zoom meetings. We don't know specifically, or Wade Davis for that matter, though I'm not sure you were chomping at the bit to get him back out there. I don't have anything specifically on David Dahl at the moment, no.
All right, the Rockies take on the Padres in a 4-game set, and the Padres are a few games ahead of them in the NL West standings. What are your expectations for this series?
I expect the Rockies to come out and play them well and play them close. The Padres have been hot. They've been very hot, but the Rockies have played this Padres team very well over the last couple of years. They have confidence playing against them, including beating them. And they were Wade Davis away from sweeping them at Coors Field earlier this season. I think the Rockies feel confident. I think they also know that this is the series they have to win. They have to beat the Diamondbacks and Padres in order to go where they need to go this season. If you get second place in your division, you're an automatic entry into the playoffs. Right now, the Padres hold that spot over the Rockies. I think this is developing into a really good rivalry, actually, of these 2 young teams, one of which seems to get a great deal of credit for the way they've created their success, which is just now starting to happen in the Padres. The Rockies, who don't get any credit for the way they've built their success, they take that personally. And I think they go out there to stick it to the Padres, particularly every time. And now it just matters that much more in a season like this, because these games count like 3 times as much. You have to go out and beat these guys. And I think that they will. I think they'll take 3 games in the set.
Someone else made a comment here that it was good to see Matt Calvert wearing his Rockies hat at the players' press conference yesterday. So we love a little support within the city of teams.
There were a couple of guys who threw on some Avs stuff the other day. I can't remember who it was, though.
Yeah.
It was cool. It's cool.
Woo!
Michael Malone has actually had some really hilarious comments throughout like the last year about the Rockies and the Avalanche.
Really?
Well, he always just like says stuff like, "Man, I'm really rooting on Buddy Black and the boys tonight. You know, like they got a big game against the Padres."
That's so
Or he'll shout out Jared Bednar. He's also worn an Avs cap a bunch in the bubble, so it's just it's funny to see that inner city
connection.
Inner city connection.
Yeah,
That's a
I'd say the
podcast I'd
coaches.
listen to.
Well, and throw Vic Fangio in there too, because of course he was at Nuggets playoff games last year, and just about a week ago he gave a shout out to the Rockies, and everyone was saying, "What about the shout out to the Nuggets and Avs? They're the ones in the playoffs right now."
That's so funny. We've got someone in the comments
Baseball
saying,
season.
Speaking of baseball, don't let them load the bases. And then
Yeah,
Wild, if they don't load the bases, then where is the excitement in the 9th inning?
Slam Diego and the argument over whether or not it's okay to hit a grand slam when you're winning. Baseball remains undefeated in the dumb things that we fight about.
So it's funny.
By far the dumbest thing of any of all the sports. Baseball's going to have the top 10.
So after that whole drama about hitting a grand slam and all of that, the Avs had just continued to win 7-1 in 2 consecutive games. And I had people tweeting at me like, should they stop? Is this enough? And I'm like, I never made a comment saying, why are you yelling at? And it was baseball fans. They're like, should they stop? Should they not keep scoring goals? I was like, sir, if you look at my timeline, I have never said anything.
Sir.
No, they shouldn't stop because we want more goal shots at the DNVR bar. But all right, quick break before we talk about Broncos and Nuggets. Everyone's favorite time of the year is right around the corner. It's interesting. Baseball season is kind of taking a little back seat with the playoffs happening, but baseball. I meant baseball, I guess, and football. That was just subconsciously I said baseball. I apologize, Drew.
It's fine. Still true. It's also true. It's fine.
Football has taken a bit of a backseat with Avs and Nuggets in the playoffs, but football is about to be back to celebrate football's 101st year. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting new users in the center of the action with a free $101 bet when they place a bet on the Kansas City Chiefs versus Houston Thursday night game. The touchdown of a deal is only available for 101 hours, so get in on all of that action now. Don't forget to head over to DraftKings right now and use that promo code DNVR to get your free $101 bet for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Other terms and conditions and restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, be sure to call 1-800-522-4700. We don't have our draft guys on here right now, but our draft guys, I cannot speak. I need more Strava Craft coffee. Our bet guys on here right now, but they did do a show this morning. They'll do another one on Monday and Tuesday. Definitely go follow DNVR Bets Daily to figure out what you should be putting your money on DraftKings Sportsbook. And as always, don't forget to use that promo code DNVR. All right. Well, we mentioned football, so let's just keep it going with the flow of things. Zach, we're halfway through, or a little bit past halfway through, Broncos training camp. Last week we had Andre on here kind of talk about the Broncos, but he hasn't been out there. He doesn't know things. He hasn't seen things with his own eyes. So he was struggling.
He doesn't know things.
That's what he told me.
Get a real expert in here.
Andre doesn't know stuff.
Well, he told me not to be on this podcast today. So, Andre doesn't know things. No, he said, he's like, from everything I've learned, I kind of think this and that, but we wanted to have Zach on here to give us all of the details. You've been out at training camp. What are a few positive things that you've seen from the Broncos so far?
Well, should we throw out Andre's takes and see if I should roast him or not?
No, if I would have been prepared, then I would have written them down. But no, he didn't have any takes. He just was like, I think this is happening. From what I've read, this is happening. But when people were asking some of the nitty gritty things, who's showing more improvement, Melvin Gordon or Phillip Lindsey, those little answers, he's like, well, I haven't personally seen them, so I'm not positive. So,
well, let's talk about Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsey, the biggest battle going on at Broncos training camp right now, and they both look really good. Melvin Gordon's going to take a spot as a big-time receiving threat coming out of the backfield, and Phil's Phil. He's just running with his hair on fire every single play, and he just brings so much energy to the Broncos and specifically their offense. And I had a conversation with someone earlier this week. They said, why is Drew Lock not the headline every single day from every single outlet? We finally got a quarterback, right? What does that mean? And
he's rolling his eyes.
And the reason for that is because Drew Lock's doing what he needs to do. And so that's a good thing that it's not the headline of Drew Lock has a miserable practice. So Drew Lock bounces back. So that's actually good news. Why the young up-and-coming quarterback is because he looks very, very solid. He's had probably 8 good practices, a bad practice, and then a so-so practice. But from a second-year guy, that's great. And obviously that is the number one story with this team. So it's good that it hasn't been bad news on that front. And then the defense is playing like they should be. Right now they're going into Vic Fangio's second season under this defensive scheme, and they're the highest paid defense in the league. So they should be doing work. And so far they look pretty good.
You guys had a headline for your Broncos training camp post-game shows saying Malik Reed has really shined in some of those practices where Von Miller has been out. That's great to have him there. But what about Bradley Chubb? Have we really seen a good amount of him, or is he still kind of limiting his play with his injury?
Yeah, he's making his way back steady, but he hasn't been the storyline on the defense. It really has been Von Miller. Now, maybe it's because of who he's been going up against, and right tackle is probably the biggest question on the Broncos, and Von typically lines up against that right tackle, and he's just been burning Elijah Wilkinson. And so who knows if Malik Reed really is the next Shaq Barrett type of player where he's a really good backup who can step in for Von, or if the right tackle is that big of a mess for the Broncos. And credit to Garrett Bowles. He's had his best training camp yet. Now, we'll see what that actually means. Is he just a little bit better, or is he actually significantly improved? That's a huge question for the Broncos, but he's been going up against Bradley Chubb and certainly doing a better job against Bradley Chubb than Elijah Wilkinson has been doing against Von Miller.
I got distracted. Someone asked, will we ever have all 4 teams play on the same day?
That's a great question.
Oh my God. There might be a chance.
I hope not.
Oh, no. That's going to happen.
Yeah. There's really a chance of that happening. If the Avs and Nuggets continue on after this series,
I was going to say, they just got to get to the next round, and then it'll be, and the Rockies will have a Sunday afternoon game because they always do.
Wow. That would be a long day of sports, but you know what? It'll be awesome. We've gone without sports for a very long time, so having a full 4-day, we'll talk about it. We'll rember it. It'll
This
be
is what we were
Cots in
built
the
for,
bar.
guys. We were built for this.
There's a chance it could play out really well too if there's those games on September 14th. That's a Monday night. Broncos don't play
Monday
until
night.
like 8:45. So man, if there's like a Nuggets game at 5, an Avs game at 7 or something like that, and we'll throw a Rockies game in there, that could stack up pretty well.
Well, if the Nuggets are still in it by then, they'll definitely have the early spot. So they'll have like the 1 o'clock game.
Oh, Rockies
It's
at
a
5.
slot they always get.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we started carrying Strava Craft Coffee cold brew at the bar, because we've been spending hours on hours on hours here. We've got brunch. No matter what, it's gonna be awesome. So like he said, bring it on. It'll be a fun time. Is there any other things that have stood out to you, Zach, during this training camp?
Man, Jerry Jeudy, he's really, really stood out. He's proven that he can be that 950-yard receiver like the past 3 Alabama wide receivers who have been picked in the first round. They've averaged 950 receiving yards, and Jerry Jeudy looks like he can do that. And Courtland Sutton is proving that he's still the alpha of that group. He looks really good and is clearly Drew Lock's favorite target.
That's exciting to hear. Good stuff. All right, Harrison, let's finish it off with some Nuggets talk. Huge needed win, of course, for the Nuggets last time we saw them play. And just another stellar performance from Jamal Murray.
Yeah, he's been incredible. I mean, in 3 out of the 5 games in this series, he's definitely been the Nuggets' best player. And 42 points in that Game 5 win, became the first player to have 40 points or more without a turnover in back-to-back playoff games ever in NBA history. So the scoring's been incredible, absolutely taken over the game in these last couple second halves. And then, but I mean, the other thing is he's not turning the ball over. So the main storyline is, of course, Nuggets are back in this series. The subplot is that Jamal Murray is kind of taken over as the alpha of this team. And, like, Nikola Jokic has been good. I don't think he's necessarily won the matchup with Rudy Gobert. He outplayed him in this last game, but up until that point, Gobert was really outplaying him in the series. But Jamal Murray is kind of shouldering the offensive load for Denver, and I feel like he's becoming the pulse of that team more and more.
Yeah, this last game they really showed their grit and their want to win after a few of those blowouts. People were questioning if the Nuggets still even wanted to be in the bubble, if they still wanted to be in this, just because of the way that they had performed. But this last game, we saw that they went down in that third or in the second half, and then came back and just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And once again, the DNVR bar was going crazy.
Yeah.
The energy was amazing. People hadn't experienced that sports high of just being like, oh my God, is this going to happen in so long? And that was a great game.
Yeah, Jamal was just in one of those zones. Like I've said it before, but you know, when he gets hot, he's like the most fun player to watch when he gets hot. Like more fun than Jokic, for sure, because like Jamal will actually take the shot every time down. Jokic won't, but 92 straight points for Jamal with 0 turnovers is absolutely nuts. And like a lot of people were questioning them because they were right to question them. I mean, the Nuggets just straight didn't show up in Game 3 down when that series was tied 1-1. And just not showing up like that in a playoff game is pretty inexcusable. It was embarrassing. So I don't blame everybody for kind of counting the Nuggets out. I pretty much counted them out. And then they were down 15 points in the third quarter of Game 5. And then Jamal led them on another ridiculous comeback. So they've certainly been teetering on the edge. And, I mean, they are back in the series. And I think they found some stuff defensively in that second half. And even in the fourth quarter of Game 5, Utah looked a little frazzled. They looked a little panicky. So I definitely think they're back in this series. But look, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in a row, which is what the Nuggets would have to do to win this series. That's why there have only been 11 teams ever to come back from 3-1 deficits. It's just tough to do. But I think the Nuggets certainly have the momentum now. So, yeah, this series is not over.
92 straight points with 0 turnovers is what one of our comments say. That is insane. We've got the Peloton Prince. People are excited. I don't think people on this podcast know why you're called the Peloton Prince, Harrison.
I mean, I don't think there's much of a story behind it. I got a Peloton, started talking about it on the DNVR Nuggets podcast.
And then you were crowned a prince.
Started calling me the Peloton Prince. Yes. Crowned the prince after 2 weeks on the Peloton.
No, I like that. That story had a beginning, a middle, and an end. That was perfect.
Nothing crazy. Gary Harris.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
Question.
He was questionable going into the last game. From everything I'm hearing, it seems like it's going to be up to him when he comes back. It's just that, you know, he hasn't played in a game since March, hasn't played inside the bubble. And a guy that's had that many soft tissue injuries like Gary Harris has had, it's kind of a mental struggle to get back and trust your body. So seems like he's fighting through that. Theoretically, the game's getting pushed back by a couple days increases his chances of playing, I would think. So it's still up in the air. We'll see. I'm guessing he's going to be questionable up until tip-off on Sunday.
I saw some people saying that Gary Harris wouldn't have made a difference with the defense against the Jazz, but I beg to differ. I think, Gary Harris has had his ups and downs, but when it came to defense, I think he would have at least had a little more of an impact on Donovan Mitchell than Torrey Craig and some of our other guys that have been on him, Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, I think he would have made a difference for sure. Like, he's been their best perimeter defender this year. And the one thing the Nuggets are really lacking right now, and you can see it with just all the miscommunications and all the breakdowns and all the like terrible defensive mistakes they made earlier in this series that are just like such basic concepts. They're just lacking high IQ defensive players right now. And that's what Gary Harris is. So he's a smart defender. He's not going to mess up assignments. And I think the one thing you worry about is just like stamina. It's going to be tough for him to come back after a 5-month layoff and play 30 minutes a game. That's probably unrealistic, but I think he can give you a boost here and there. And then just emotionally, too, just having him back is he's like a big leader in the locker room, a big example that guys look up to. So just like emotionally, I feel like he could give them a boost, too.
Yeah, him, Will Barton, those were two guys that really did show that leadership in that locker room, and both of them out, and now Will Barton gone. You can definitely see how that might impact them. Michael Porter Jr., what have you thought of his play? He had 15 points last game. He's hit some great threes, but again, defense has kind of been struggling, but we're not necessarily surprised by that, as that's what we've been expecting and seeing from him all season long.
Yeah, he's been rough defensively, and I mean, this is what happens to rookies in the playoffs a lot of times, especially those who just don't come into the league as amazing defenders. Opposing teams are just going to put them in the pick and roll, get the switch, and then just drive the ball on them, get to the basket or draw a foul. And that's what the Jazz are doing against Porter. They're just pretty much switching him on to Donovan Mitchell, and then Mitchell's going one-on-one, or whoever that guard is going one-on-one. And it's funny, like Porter, I've actually enjoyed how open and honest he's been about it. He had a quote the other day that was like, yeah, they're switching me on to the ball handler every time. They're going right at me. Hey, I would do the same thing if I was going against a rookie in the playoffs. So I've enjoyed how honest he's been, and how he just kind of said he knows he needs to get a lot better. But I think a big thing going forward for the Nuggets, maybe not this series because it looks like they're pretty committed to playing Porter off the bench and letting him run with that bench unit. But like going forward in a playoff setting, are they going to be able to play Murray, Porter, and Jokic at the same time, just from a defensive standpoint? Because all three of those guys have been exposed one way or another in the playoffs defensively. Murray not so much this year, more so last year. But that's going to be a big question for Denver. Can they get stopped with those three on the floor?
We have in the comments, looked like last game, second half was the best answer on defense. Just go back to that question mark.
Yeah, it was. I mean, this is something that the Nuggets have been doing and a lot of NBA teams do, but they just switch on defense way too easily. Like in the playoffs, most teams switch every type of pick and roll, and they just do it so easily. They don't really fight through screens. But what you saw in that second half was guys were fighting through screens. They weren't switching as willingly. There's more ball pressure. It made Utah uncomfortable. So whatever they did in that second half, definitely expect that Sunday in Game 6.
And is it possible the Nuggets trade for Beal and still have Jokic and Jamal and MPJ?
Look, anything's possible in the NBA. Anything's possible, especially when it comes to all-star guys trading teams and moving around the offseason. We know anything's possible in the NBA. I think with what MPJ showed, not necessarily in this first round, but in the seeding games, and with how Jamal Murray's played in this first round, I don't think the Nuggets are going to be rushing to trade any of those guys this summer, even for Bradley Beal, to be honest. I think Jamal in the playoffs, just his second time in the playoffs, and look, he's still really young. He's still only 23 years old. I think he's showed more than enough for Denver to run it back with those three next year. So it seemed like definitely in the regular season that Beal would be the prime target, but I don't really see it anymore after how these playoffs and kind of everything inside the bubble's gone.
All right. This is a good question, or a good comment, I guess, and I wanted to have your takes on it. Nuggets and Avs have a lot of similarities in their playoff series, especially in terms of attitude. AJ, what do you think of that?
I would disagree. The Nuggets have been getting mostly waxed in their series. And like I said, the Avs had chances in each a bounce here, a bounce there. It's 3-0 in the series, Colorado. So
yeah, the Nuggets didn't show up in game 2 and game 3.
Right. Like the Avs played a poor game 1, and they were still at 3-3 in that game at some point. I just think Colorado's just they've run into an opponent that's playing the best hockey they have all season. I mean, regular season included. And then on top of that, they're also, I mean, the game 1 was their worst game.
Yeah.
And now they've got injuries to key players. Like Eric Johnson's not in that lineup. You know, they're playing their backup goaltender. There are some things that they have to now overcome that have nothing to do with their opponent. You know, and the Nuggets losing out on Will Barton and Gary Harris, that's huge for them. Like, they need those guys. And you're compromised without them. And with the Avs, like especially Eric Johnson, there's just no replacing that guy. And the big difference is that I think that the Avs are just a clear step better than the Stars when they're both at their best. I have no idea if that's true of the Nuggets and Jazz because everybody in the Western Conference is so good.
Yeah, in the regular season, the Nuggets, I think, were a clear step better than the Jazz.
I mean, they smoked the Jazz head-to-head, but
they went 4-0. All those games were
Like one was 7
a little
players.
close. Yeah, all those games were competitive,
game was awesome.
but they were clearly a better team in the regular season. The thing about the Jazz that has thrown the Nuggets off, at least in my opinion, how they play in the playoffs, that they're playing in the playoffs right now, is completely different than how they played in the regular season. The Jazz are shooting at least over their 8 seeding games before the playoffs started. They were shooting the second most threes in the league behind the Rockets. They were not doing that during the regular season. They were not shooting nearly as many threes. And the Nuggets have not been able to defend the 3 really all year and inside the bubble. So that was kind of hitting the Nuggets' Achilles heel there. So
yeah, on the TNT broadcast, whenever I was watching that, they said that a lot, that the Jazz have completely changed the way that they play this series, and that could have caught the Nuggets off guard.
Well, it definitely did, and even if the Nuggets were expecting it, they didn't do a good job of making it act like they were expecting it.
Someone's asking when they play. They play a Game 6 Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
Correct.
And then we've got, like we were saying, we've got Avs that same day at 4 p.m. And then we have Rockies. Is that game at 1 o'clock, Drew?
I think so. 1:10. I mean,
and then Zach, do we have Broncos
baseball,
training
so it's
camp?
1:10. Yeah.
No Broncos training camp
Broncos
on Sunday.
camp. I was going to say, it's a busy day. We've been doing post-game streams for pretty much every team, and it's been a lot of fun. But before we go, I definitely want to show you guys a few shirts that we have in stock. But also, Green Mountain Dental Group is family-owned and one of the best dentists here in Colorado. Our sales director, Lindsey, got her wisdom teeth removed a few weeks ago and really said it was one of the best dentist experiences she's ever had. Her dentist personally called to check up on her a few days after surgery. Plus, they're all diehard Denver sports fans, and supporting them really supports and helps us here at DNVR. So don't forget to schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam at Green Mountain Dental Group, and you'll receive a free Sonicare toothbrush today. So not only are you supporting us, but you'll also get a free Sonicare toothbrush, and you can ask Harrison. Electric toothbrushes all the way. Those are the best.
Game changer.
Game changer, just like some game-changing coffee that I already downed. But we got Zach looking fly. Look at that, Zach.
Hey, appreciate H-Town.
Is he from Houston?
Think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
My man.
So we've got a bunch of new shirts. Broncos fans, your shirts are coming. But right now we've got Kale, Carry Me Home for the Avs, Sombor Shuffle, Colorado Rakes. All of these really great shirts. I am wearing one right now. I'm wearing the Carry Me Home. We also have them here at the DNVR bar. So if you're stopping by to get some food, drink, watch a game, you can purchase some of those shirts, or you can go to DNVRlocker.com. They're pretty awesome. I'm loving them.
The Carry Me Home shirt, it's got like a 90s nostalgia, I feel like.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
that was Eric's
that was
fault.
the point.
Yeah, so good.
It's
Eric
so
was
good.
like, I used every possible font I could. I know 90s, and this is the
Yeah.
90s shirt I'm going to
It's
make.
so
for you
90s.
guys.
You
And
could
it
you
fit.
could put that thing up in a Hot Topic and it would not be out of place.
Oh my God, I haven't heard Hot Topic in forever. Wow.
More of a Spencer's Gifts guy, myself, but it's fine. Well, you know, everyone's got their thing.
We've got how much for
course.
Zach's
Do
shirt?
people still go to
Wow.
malls?
Wow.
Oh yeah.
There's been a lot of love for it, Allie. I think we may need to throw it on eBay and see how high we can get it.
Do that eBay game.
Just the top half, please.
So, for people not understanding the reference, before this show, we did Free Skate Friday, and the last segment of that show was I picked out some items off eBay, Etsy, Poshmarket, and asked the guys to guess how much those were how much they cost on eBay, what they were being sold for, and some of them were absolutely ridiculous, like.
Yeah.
$10,000. But of course, this is the one that ended up sticking with everyone because of the male model.
Because it was hammer time.
Incredible.
Stop it, AJ.
Those pants are amazing.
No.
I'm getting
But,
some.
yes, this was $50, and we had a great people listening to the podcast side of this. I apologize. We had this Gretzky jersey going for how much did I say? $7,000.
Yeah.
Then we had these boxes right here, just boxes. No, it didn't show what was inside them. Just said there are baseball cards and hockey cards in here. Drew, you weren't playing this game when we were doing this. How much do you think 25,000 baseball and hockey cards were going for?
Probably like $20,000. Like I mean, like
said.
yeah, it's like yeah.
Close.
15,987.
Someone got a
But-
bad investment then. They spent more on those cards than they're going to get back out of it. You got 25,000 baseball cards and a pack costs. You get like what, 5 or 6 in a pack and they cost $5. You did not get a solid return on your investment there, buddy.
They said it's probably all worth $21,000, but they were giving you that great deal, $15,000 for those boxes.
But I've gone through the trouble of collecting all of this for you.
There you go.
Therefore, oh my.
Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We do got Rockies tonight. We will be, a good amount of us will be at the DNVR bar, so come hang out. But if not, hopefully we'll see you Sunday, or we'll see you back next Friday on the Denver Sports Podcast. Don't forget to leave us your questions, reviews, all that good stuff, and we will see you next week. Bye.
See ya.